Funny enough, this says PUBG is not banned in India as it's not entirely Chinese. 2 months later, it's been banned. So hello, my name is Tom Pickering. This is my first Let's Talk episode, I guess. That's what I'm going to call it for now. I don't know. This is really scuffed, but it's going to be good and fun. It's something I've been wanting to do for quite a while. I've been in the esports industry for nearly 6 years from a professional point of view and a big fan since the early 2000s from like Quake Live, which was one of my first esports I got into, a bit of Tribes, etc, etc. And as time has gone on, I went from doing a lot of commentary, which I have done like a few thousand hours on over the past 6 years, from CSGO, PUBG Mobile, and a few other random scattered games, as well as I think once I casted a live poll on I think straw poll once, which was amusing. So today's subject is going to be about from like a business point of view as well as like an esports one, just covering all the industry, and I'm going to be doing more of these as we go forward. And I really just want to dive into these topics because they really interest me. And I'll be frank, I don't enjoy streaming games, but I want to stream this and put this content out there for people to ask and learn, and basically just a hub of information. I mean, a couple of my inspirations, main one being Devin Nash for a lot of his content around the influencer market and just general esports is definitely where I take a lot of this from, and what I'll be using to help sort of gauge my own path going forward. So today, Indian government, they actually turned around and said, all right, it, we're actually going to ban 118 apps today. They'd already banned about 60 others, including TikTok, back in June. And unfortunately for the gaming industry, two of these apps that were banned are actually two major ones. It was actually PUBG Mobile and Road to Kings, actually, and Arena of Valor. So these are all massive titles with millions and millions of downloads, and I'll get more into that in the sort of second part, which you can see on screen. And sorry for my scuffed camera, which you can probably see the green screen isn't perfect because I've actually only got one light set up at the moment, because when I went to buy a second one, they doubled in price. So I was like, screw it, I'll wait. The graphics on here are going to be a bit scuffed as well. I've thrown this together very quickly because I'm tired of saying I'll do something and then wait. Anyway, staying on course. So let's have a quick look at the actual press release of what has been going on. So they actually announced this. So as you can see, government blocks 118 mobile apps which are I can't say the words. I'm dyslexic, and when doing stuff under pressure, sometimes if I haven't practiced those words, I do get screwed up onto it. But to sovereignty and integrity of India, defense of India, security of state, and public order. And basically what that means is they're saying we're worried about our data protection. These Chinese companies and other companies externally from India are taking this information from our citizens and sending it externally to countries like China, where they're using it for profit or to gain intelligence. And this really comes down to a couple of reasons as to why this came into being, which I'll get into the last section more so. But I've sort of highlighted a couple of the important parts. Obviously 118 apps, brilliant. It's actually close to 100 and like 200 actually, including the ones in June. And as I mentioned, TikTok and PUBG being the two main ones for this. I think so far they've had about like nearly 200 million downloads of PUBG Mobile just in India alone. So you can see the scale of it is absolutely massive. And to have that removed from such a big, growing economical sort of market is just horrendous for Tencent, who are the guys who made this in partnership with PUBG or Bluehole. So they're saying they received plenty of many complaints from various sources, including several reports about misuse of some mobile apps available on Android and iOS platforms for stealing and surreptitiously transmitting users' data in an unauthorized manner to servers which have locations outside of India, which goes back to what I said about sending information externally to countries like China. And that's mainly what they're getting at, because there's actually been a clash, including 20 deaths of Indian soldiers at a border in India. So that's kind of raised a massive push from sort of intolerance of Chinese everything, products and services from Indian citizens. They're like, hang on a minute, if they're going to be killing our soldiers, we don't really want them here, and we want to move into. And so I think that's one of the reasons, but I think it's a bit of a scapegoat in a way for a lot of people, and they haven't put that as like a big upfront one, but I think that's one of the causes as to why they're going to be doing this. And they're saying it's a threat to the national security. I think that's fair enough. Data as a commodity has actually overtaken oil in regards to its worth in the world, which is just ridiculous because oil's been at the top for so many years and it's worth however many trillion now. And they're saying this is like an immediate concern, so they've jumped on this and quickly cut it off at the head. And that's really what we're going to be focusing on as to why they've done this so quickly and what the potential outcomes are. And they're sort of saying this is being flagged by various public representatives. I mean, this is just mostly sort of jargon at this point. And again, just repeating the fact that in the public space, it's been a big thing of, yeah, no, we don't want to take part in any more sort of Chinese services or products. More likely the older generation shouting this as well. Still need to look into exactly who's been shouting this. It's a bit hard for translations and looking on social media, but there has been a buzz around for quite a while now around this stuff, and it's happening with a lot of countries. You can see over in America, they've been banning like the likes of Huawei, which is also happening in the UK as well, because they're realizing, well, hang on a minute, do we really want this beast of a country, China, the largest country in the world in regards to population and almost size, to have all this information about our citizens and to be getting a little bit too much and in depth into what their information they actually hold? And so that's where India have stepped in, and they've actually gone beyond what most countries have. And I do know at the moment America is saying either sell TikTok as an entity to American-owned companies, or you're going to be banned. And so Microsoft and one other company, can't think off the top of my head, have actually put up offers to be able to purchase TikTok in its entirety outside of China, so they can actually run it and have all the services based outside of China, so the data isn't sold there. And sorry again if this is a bit jumbled, doing this for the first time, I'm just jumping straight in, and this whole first part is just talking over this Ministry of India's PR piece, so we can get an idea of what the actual situation is. Let me actually move this up here so I can actually follow my thread of what I want to talk about as well. Is that still showing? Yeah, brilliant. So as I was saying, data harvesting, very good reason as to sort of stop it and collect it, sort of the collect and share data. TikTok was disgusting in regards to how this worked. Oh wow, I'm behind the thing, aren't I? There we go. And it's really disgusting how they've done this. I mean, on TikTok it was recording, I think it was every third letter, or no, keystroke, every third keystroke, it was recording the information and uploading it to TikTok, even if you have the app closed, which is just scary to think about what they're recording. And I had experience with this on Google recently, where they're like, oh yeah, we've changed the terms and services of your Google Audio, and I'm like, I don't have Google Music for years, and that's now dead. So what is it? Clicked on it, and it's actually talking about when you say, hey Google, and yeah, my phone's actually just reacted, bugger off. And it actually has been recording since I switched over to Android like 5 years ago. It's been recording whenever it says that. So if you say that phrase, it then starts recording and uploads it to an external server, which you don't see anywhere on your app of like, okay, it's uploading this data. And it probably only does it when it's connected to wireless or a backend upload feature, whatever, who knows. And I was looking through it, and there's a bunch of stuff on there, and it's really scary. And the thing is, like, TikTok was doing that far more actively without needing that phrase. And like things like Facebook, Instagram, everything, like all these kind of things, they do record this data. They'll probably deny it, and they have done. But it is what they do because they want to have that information and data control. And as we go forward into the future, which can have less and less privacy, which is the scary thing, but it's also what you're going to have to get used to. But a country like India, they've turned around and said, no, we want to do our best to protect this and keep it in-house. And so they have decided to restrict a bunch of certain apps sort of used in mobile and non-mobile internet-enabled devices. In regards to what they have banned, we can go through it, but this is the list of like every single app that has been restricted this time round, not including the original, I think it was 70 or 68 ones that were banned previously. But I mean, I've highlighted a couple of important ones to consider, and that's Alipay and Alipay HK, which is just a Hong Kong version, if I'm right in saying. And this is a massive app for any Chinese users who are wanting to send and receive money just for themselves. And Road to Kings is bloody massive as a game. Just in July, they had about 1 million downloads, which isn't quite on PUBG Mobile's level, but it's still huge. Their revenue was in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions as well. And then you have Tencent Watch List. I haven't really looked into that too much, but again, It's just an example. Tencent equals bleh, or anything. And I think one of the summaries was from Daniel Ahmed, was basically if it's developed by any Chinese related company, gone. If it's published by another company, that's where they get a little bit iffy on it as well. All right, Mo, what you're saying? Yeah, it's not just TikTok, etc. that's been doing this. Facebook and Google, etc. I've seen some of them get advertised to me from them. Thankfully, avoided TikTok. Yeah, I downloaded TikTok once when I was in Malta. Put up a video of some construction workers on our building and this building was like 20 feet floors high, and they were spinning going down on this really shoddy platform. And I did like "You Spin Me Right Round, Baby" like on music to it, and said this is the quality of construction workers you get in Malta. And all I got was a spam of like 13-year-old kids telling me to go back to my own country. So I was like, delete, and I've not installed it again, and I won't. There's no reason to install TikTok. If you want to view some of the videos, people will rip them off or they'll post them on Twitter. Easy. And TikTok's a whole nother discussion. Like no sponsor wants to properly pay anyone to post videos on there, because all the users are the younger generation who have a really bad issue with instant gratification and laziness, where they don't actually click through on anything on TikTok when they're on their mobile. So they don't get any value for those partnerships, but that's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, so they have banned 2 versions of PUBG as well. Have I scrolled past it? Did I not highlight PUBG? Is that what I did? Am I blind? Oh, it's right there. There you go. So they banned 2 versions of it, and I mean they have actually quite a few different weird versions of PUBG Mobile. I never quite understood why they decided to do it, but as far as I know, this is the main version. They're just advertising their latest map, which is Livik. Not available on PUBG PC. This is a very specific one for PUBG Mobile. It's really awesome. I've watched a couple of streams on it, and it's really well put together, and the development of the game astounds me. I mean, compared to PUBG PC, I mean, it's just amusing. But they have also banned likes of like Rules of Survival, which is another sort of PUBG copycat that's been around for a couple of years, and it was actually out before PUBG Mobile originally. Arena of Valor, that's been around for quite a while, massive amount of downloads. And I also highlighted NetEase because it's a giant company based in, or development studio based in China. And what's quite interesting about this is there's actually a game being developed by them in partnership with Blizzard, and it's actually Diablo Immortals. Do you remember that one, guys? So this should surely get banned and blocked in China. If it's following the same principle of, is it developed in China? Yes. Okay. Banned. But quite interestingly, I mean, will it get banned? I mean, if it does, but at least they will have mobiles, right? But will it get banned? Activision at the moment have Call of Duty Mobile, and it's actually being developed by the Timmy studio, which is owned by Tencent and is in China. But they've not been banned because recently, I think last month, the month before, they actually removed themselves from Tencent. The partnership has been split. So they're actually quite safe at the moment, and I think they may well stay in that way where they can continue it. But what it means for Diablo Immortals means that they might get blocked from the biggest, maybe the second biggest, I guess, after China, but probably the easiest market for mobile gaming and mobile apps to be blocked from them, which as a whole really sucks because that's a whole massive market that is not going to touch you. Because I know for myself, I'm not going to touch Diablo Immortals because they really just in our face in regards to, oh, you want Immortals 4? You've got mobiles, right? And like, I'm going to repeat that over and over again. And I was rewatching that a while ago, the whole thing about Diablo Immortals, and it was just horrendous. And the fact that they decided to go to NetEase because they wanted to target the Chinese market, great, but they've now restricted themselves and may well block themselves, like cock-block themselves from the rest of the mobile market, which may well be worth far more than just going over to China, because this now blocks so many avenues. Anyway, onwards and upward. So let's talk a little bit actually more on some people who've been in discussion about this since it came out a few hours ago, about 5 hours if I go by his thread here, or like 1:25 p.m. UK time. So this is Daniel Ahmed. If you don't follow him, go do it. He's a great person within the industry to talk about. I mean, he doesn't care about it. He goes through all the data. He explains it. He's not biased as far as I've seen. There's been a couple of things where I've been like, come on, Daniel, calm down. But overall, it's a good choice. Good choice to follow him, that is. As you can see, he's like sort of backing up with what I said. Downloaded nearly 200 times in India, and is the top grossing title of all time in the country. And the thing is, it's not just in the country. This game is probably higher grossing than Fortnite outside in regards to in-game purchases. From what I've seen of data over like a few different months. I mean, I'd say it's probably the highest grossing game in regards to in-app purchases. When it comes to market activations, like Fortnite is, they're crazy. They're above everyone else. When they have activations around Marvel, rappers, DJs, like car brands, like Star Wars, like this stuff is just nuts. And they'll be getting paid millions for that kind of stuff, and it's worth that much to them. In-game transactions and everything, and they're kind of in their own whole ruckus at the moment with the fact that they're not on mobiles officially through the app stores anyway. APKs on Android you can, unfortunately for iPhones you can't, because they have a monopoly on that, which should be removed, but that's my opinion on the antitrust situation. But yeah, so he goes down into talking about how it has been banned along with Rise Kingdoms, pretty much what I'm talking about right now. I mean, he mentions the streamer scene. It has one of the biggest mobile streaming scene that is available to Westerners and everyone else just across YouTube and Facebook. They don't really stream on Twitch. There's not really a great success of PUBG Mobile on Twitch. Here, I mean, let's go to stream Hatchet. Let's have a look at a little bit of data on here as well. I don't have access to the games, unfortunately, at this point. But, I mean, if you just have a look on here for PUBG Mobile, and let's do a whole month of August, so the previous month, and see who's actually in the top on here. So one of the top streamers of it is actually he just does, it's not even in his like top 10 game of streaming. Like none of these guys, I mean, okay, you get down here and there is actually PUBG Mobile, who had 95,000 hours watched on Twitch and 10,000 current viewers, and that's insane. I mean, if you compare that to PUBG, like Battlegrounds, for example, bugger off. It's like gonna be a bit slow sometimes, but overall it's really good. So let's have a look at the actual PUBG Battlegrounds one, just the normal one over the past August, on actual people who stream it. And if we look for the actual main channels here, said they actually do have 606,000 average hours watched over the past month, or total rather, and then their average viewership was 22,000, so about 10k on top. But when we switch this, so this is PUBG Mobile, if we switch this to YouTube, for example, these numbers are insane. I have to redo it. I have to give feedback on this platform, because it's still got a few things that they need to work on here. But yeah, so hours watched, 4.7 million. Average viewership, or concurrent viewers, 433,000. So this game is absolutely massive. That's in Indonesia, and so Southeast Asia is a whole different conversation. It's the biggest game there, and it's bigger than it is in India, which is saying something. And PUBG India on here, they have 3.7 million hours watched, and I mean, even the PUBG Mobile Esports one is technically based in India, from what it's saying on here. But realistically, if you look at the dedicated channel, which will be just in their languages, they peak massively on their viewership. That's just crazy. If you add all those together compared to PUBG PC, nuts. This is one of the most successful games of all time, and a lot of people are sleeping on it. And I did for a while, I'm not going to lie. I dived into it last year and did a bunch of commentary on it for a couple of different things, and got to travel over to Italy and do an event with ESL, which was really fun. Anyway, back on focus. Let's have a look at Slasher as well. So again, Slasher, he just repeats information that's out there, and he's basically a signal booster. He's a great guy on that front. Love memeing him. Number 2 consultant in the world, and he talks about a few different things. So let's actually re-go back to the Call of Duty situation here. So this is one of the articles talking about the fact that Activision parted way with Tencent, which is potentially one of the key things that will allow them to take over in this market. Because at the moment, no PUBG player is going to be able to play PUBG Mobile properly within India without using VPNs or moving countries. And using VPNs has a bunch of issues, screws with your ping, your ability to be able to play with your friends, etc., and from a professional point of view. And so Activision actually parted ways, and they do have a Battle Royale function in their app. So if they go ahead and be like, okay, we want to capture more of this market share, what they'll do is they'll just extend on that Warzone function, and they'll be like, right, guys, if you're a PUBG Mobile player, come play our game. It's a perfect fit. And that's how they'll probably take over on that front. And especially for a lot of the streamers who are like, what do I stream? It's going to be Call of Duty. Call of Duty Mobile, which is just insane. And Tencent still have their hands and like fingers in many pies, including Activision and Blizzard. It's not as if they don't own part of these companies at the core, because they do. I think they have pretty much their hands in nearly every major gaming studio out there. There's very few. I think Valve is one of them who they're private, and they don't actually have any stakes in Valve, which is just insane when you think about it. Valve's another whole topic. But like Riot, they own a massive percentage of that, a majority, compared to other stakeholders, and it's just crazy how that's changed. And they have now Valorant and League of Legends and a couple of others, like their new, like a couple of their mobile games which have seen success. So Tencent not everywhere. Even when these companies part way with studios like Timmy, they're still touched by Tencent, and it may well end up against it. And I mean, one of the reasons that led to this was actually Trump saying, "Nah, we don't want Tencent or sort of companies that are majority sort of owned by Tencent in there." I mean, yeah, so he signed an order. This restricted US companies from conducting transactions with Tencent, which is just nuts. Like, this is crazy stuff. And it's one thing I would actually say that Donald Trump has actually done well, and it has its pluses and it has its minuses. I support a country trying to go down this route, because everything at the moment is very globalized in regards to these companies, and like Tencent, who own such a massive market share across everything. Why did they ban it? So Pokemon, they banned it due to the fact that I'm going to get to this in a bit, but I'll give you a bit of a summary. They banned it because of potential data leak issues and sort of data protection of their citizens, as well as there's been a clash between India and China on one of their borders, which was, I don't actually have the article here, which actually ended up with 20 Indian soldiers dying, and it caused an outcry from the citizens of India. So it's really kind of heinous and horrible from that perspective, and you can kind of understand. So it's quite a serious thing when you actually look into it. Right, let's move on from that's kind of the introductory. I mean, do you guys have any sort of questions or thoughts about what's going on? Because I'm going to dive into sort of PUBG Mobile even further and have a bigger focus on that, because we've talked about TikTok and everything else being removed from multiple countries, and rightly so, in my opinion. If you want the presence in the Chinese market, you have to play by their rules, bro. Yeah, but at the same time, a lot of these countries are realizing that they don't actually care about the Chinese market, and I think that's a fair shout, Mike. Especially for India, which I'll get into and explain to you as to what I was thinking. But I mean, Donald Trump's already sort of said that they don't want that, and so that's fair enough. It's a big revenue point, but yeah. That's going more into the American politics, which is not what I'm going to get into here. From India's point of view, they don't have to care about that. I mean, from my recollection, China has 1.66 billion citizens, and India has 1.22 billion. Either way, I'm gonna move on. Jeebus, I'm not calling you Jeebus, Mike. You'll get doxed as much as you want, mate. Trying to remember the details. I caught earlier this year. There's definitely a clash, and apparently China didn't quite escape unscathed earlier. No, so I obviously only mentioned it from the Indian point of view, but there is the downside from the fact that obviously China had their own fatalities in that, I'd imagine, which is really horrendous. I think any of these clashes is really disgusting to happen, and I'm sure they could all be avoided. But to be fair, over the years we've avoided plenty of world wars and everything, and it's now about the sort of wars around data, and this is what this is on. This is them saying, okay, we can't take over land, so we want to take over. Well, they can take over land, and they are. China at the moment are currently in the process of trying to take over, like Africa, for example, through sort of infrastructure and funding projects across there, which is good and bad. It's helping out the country a lot in a lot of ways, but in others, it's actually just them expanding their reach. And then they've also, over the years, very smartly been taken over from a data point of view of inserting themselves across every country's sort of infrastructure, from Huawei to Tencent to NetEase to just general infrastructure. I mean, there's the running meme of when you buy a toy, it's going to have made in China or just generally anything. And you may think that's funny, but overall, like, their effect on the whole economy of every country is absolutely massive. So right now we're going to continue to experience these countries saying, okay, we don't want that anymore. Either way, getting to that in a bit. So PUBG Mobile. So PUBG Mobile's lifetime revenue hits 3 billion. Absolutely nuts. And as it says there, India tops download chart. Exactly what I was talking about. And it's going to be the case whenever you have such a massive country where its people don't have access to PCs that can actually run PUBG on PC or Fortnite or anything else on consoles, because in regards to, I think their average wage across the country is like $2,700 a year, and comparably within the country, I couldn't say exactly what that means. I have a few ideas, but unconfirmed, so I won't talk about them. But when you compare that to most other sort of Western countries in like America, UK, or like Norway or Finland or France or Germany, whatever, there's a lot more sort of ability to be able to buy PCs and more expensive like consoles and to run these games on. So when PUBG Mobile came along and gave these guys access at the same time as the infrastructure for wireless and just general 4G networks and 3G networks across the country being rolled out for free, that's just a perfect timing for this to collide and for this market to blow up, which is why it's happened. But yeah, they had about 175 million downloads, and this was by, when was this article out? I think, yeah, July this happened by. So now they probably had some more, but it doesn't matter anymore. But having a revenue up to like 3 billion, that's just nuts. That's crazy. And when like COVID hit as well, I mean, probably it's just nuts. And they say here PUBG revenues hit a record high of 270 million in March. That's per month. That's not in total for a year, if I'm right in saying, or maybe per quarter, sorry. So they use Sensor Tower. I've actually got a bunch of links on them, but unfortunately, unless you pay a ton of money, you're not getting the proper information. Funny enough, this says PUBG is not banned in India as it's not entirely Chinese. 2 months later, it's been banned. And they talk about here that the game is being created and managed by Bluehole, which is a South Korean organization. So this isn't true. PUBG and PUBG PC / console and PUBG Mobile are two very different things. I've casted and played both quite a lot. I've played a lot less PUBG Mobile. I'm just really bad at it. But PUBG Mobile basically got created because Tencent were like, well, we're going to create a competitor. So if you want to remain in the actual industry of PUBG Mobile and retain some money, let us license it. And that's exactly what they did. They gave the licensing rights to develop this game to Tencent, who copied a lot of the assets but then remade them for mobile. And then they've gone beyond that. They've done a far better development path there. They've got much better assets, just everything on this front. And the esports scene is in a far better place than PUBG PC is as well. And PUBG console doesn't have an esports scene for obvious reasons. It's very small and it's very hard to actually play professionally on a console, in my opinion. Although I have seen some pretty sick plays. And these 175 downloads is sort of about 65-35 split across Android and the App Store. And so Tencent really have the power here, and they made this, and that's why I'm saying it's so much different. I mean, they have their own new maps, guns, skins, and many other features that PUBG PC just doesn't have. They had deathmatch for so much longer than PUBG had, and their version is far better. They have dedicated maps to it. PUBG PC are just either too lazy or don't have the assets or time to actually develop their own maps, or they just have a really bad roadmap for what they want to do. And it's hard to say that it's not actually all of those in total. I love a lot of the guys at PUBG, but like PUBG PC or like Bluehole, but they have definitely failed in regards to being able to really claim success on PUBG after its initial 6 to 9 months. After that, it's just been a tailspin. And Bluehole's second highest stakeholder is actually Tencent anyway, so there's direct fingers sort of in there. And I don't think Tencent will ban PUBG PC or console because it is Bluehole and a South Korean development and Amsterdam, and there's in the presence in America as well, compared to just being a Chinese development company. how will this affect the esports scene in India and globally? So I actually went and asked a couple of my friends who'd be doing a far more and a really fantastic job at casting PUBG Mobile across the different regions like SEA and China and India and Europe and Americans areas, that is. And so some of the points I got from that is, one of the general feelings is that Tencent are going to be doing their best to get India back on board, whatever it takes. Whether that'll work or not, it's going to be very hard unless they decide to plonk a development team outside of China that is dedicated to just doing PUBG Mobile, which is possible because PUBG Mobile in China is actually rules of peace, if I remember correctly, or something very similar. Has it got it here? I don't think it has. But yeah, so they actually have a whole different game in China that is more focused on the Chinese market, where you don't kill people, there's no gore, there's no blood, and when you kill someone, down someone, they actually go into a surrender state where they like bow and wave to you goodbye, and they give over their loot, which is amusing and looks cool. And it also has like some propaganda for like the Chinese like military, for example, from what I've seen and heard, which is fine. I mean, it's standard for China to do this stuff, and that they've been this way the whole time, so you can't expect any different. They blocked PUBG Mobile from earning any revenue in their country. It could stay there, but actually, no, they eventually banned it, but it was always never allowed to actually earn money in any form because of the issues they had with it until they eventually banned it, and this was brought in as a replacement. Oh, right, I still have those other ones. No, Jeebus, it's not Perfect World, mate. Perfect World is another developer that run CSGO for Valve and a few other games as well within the Chinese remit. Because to work within the Chinese market, you have to have a company that fronts you that isn't owned by an outside company. It has to be completely internal of China to be able to access the economy. No, it's not. It's not Blanket. It's run by Tencent, and it's a yeah, I mean, I'll tell you. Chinese PUBG game. I don't know why I've completely forgotten the name. Game for Peace. I was pretty much. I had rules of survival in my head. That's why I was talking about it. So yeah. So the general feeling is that Tencent are going to be doing their best to get it back, and it is possible for them to do a studio outside of China, which would make sense if they want to retain one of the biggest markets, India. Although like the potential spend from Indian players is lower than say the potential of US or other countries like in the UK or within the EU. And I mean, like I said earlier as well, the biggest streamers from India being on sort of platforms like YouTube and Facebook is kind of crazy as well, because as soon as this game is now gone, they're going to have to go and stream something else, so they're instantly losing presence. And they are the biggest mobile streamers and biggest PUBG mobile streamers as well, from the feedback I've had. But also a lot of the feedback has been that a lot of the talent from the player talent is actually in the SEA and Chinese regions, which have access to the game or a version of it, like Game for Peace. And although PUBG Mobile will take a hit from this, it shouldn't be a kill and blow or anything. They're not going to be like, oh, they're actually going to be like, oh, that sucks, that tickles. Also, Western companies do the same with being propaganda for the armed forces, CoD Battlefield, etc. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the new Call of Duty Cold War is just full of propaganda for America in a way. There is a few hits at the American government and everything as well, but that's fine. I mean, it's about like Reagan and others, and it's not really frowned upon to do that anymore, and it's as long as it's more sort of historically accurate, which can't be said for every other country. But I mean, like I was saying, it's not going to be the kill and blow. They've got such a massive intake from every other country out there, including China with the obviously other version of it. And I mean, they have an amazing new like studio, esports studio in Poland, probably one of the more up and coming places to own a studio. I mean, ESL have been there for years because it's a very good sort of low living cost for a lot of their production costs, like from owning a studio to running it to paying people to live there, etc., and sort of, which is a little bit cynical, I guess, from that point of view, but it's also just very useful from an esports point of view, especially for how long ESL have been there, and we're only really just getting into real money when it comes to esports. Even if there's like claims of by 2022 the industry is going to be worth $3 billion. It's like, great, but what does that actually mean? And it's not as clear cut as a lot of people expect. And the studio that they built was specifically for PUBG Mobile Esports, and it looks amazing. Google it if you haven't, and go watch a couple of other things. And I mean, what's going to be interesting with PUBG Mobile in India as well, from like a team's perspective, is TSM and FNATIC both have their own Indian PUBG teams, PUBG Mobile teams. One of the teams did actually have a Indian CS:GO team, but that ended up going very badly, including a guy being cheating on stage during a major event or big event, and literally being kicked off at that point. Probably one of the biggest memes around at the time, and so they pulled back from CS:GO in India, and they have got PUBG teams who are now not going to be able to take part in the esports side of things unless they VPN, which I think they're going to have to do because they're technically contracted to play. So what that means, I have no idea. We're only going to have to like wait and see from these teams on what they decide the actions are, because if they want to move people or like have them travel temporarily, we currently have the global pandemic to deal with, and also visa issues, which are just rife, and it also just really damages their growth within the whole of the country. So do they actually want to go through that, or do they want to convert them over to, say, Call of Duty Mobile, for example, temporarily, or whatever it may be? We're going to have to wait and see what happens. This is the first day. It's only been a couple of hours since it was announced. Hopefully they keep them on board and work out a plan that works for both parties, and it doesn't screw them, because it's really not good, obviously, for TSM and FNATIC to do that. Both of these being a couple of top teams in the world. I mean, FNATIC being one of the namesakes of esports in a lot of people's opinions, and especially Jeebus in chat. Summary, why this ban happened and what might happen going forward. So I'm going to be covering again a couple of points that I've talked about due to a few of you asking questions, sort of like why this has come about. I mean, at the end of the day, what it can really be boiled down to is politics. And part of that politics is about the economic growth of India. They've been an upcoming country for many years. I mean, the UK left them in a massive mess when we gave them back their independence, rightfully so. But we did leave them in a big mess, and they've been sort of rebuilding from that and doing a fantastic job at it as well, with the help of other countries and themselves. And as they sort of enter into this new era where they've got a lot of their citizens and sort of population having access to sort of more first world sort of technology like mobile phones and wireless and 4G and 3G, they're just going to be developing at a faster scale than ever before. I mean, if you imagine 1.2 billion people having access to the technology that we do every day and at ease, it's just going to explode. And I think one of the things that they've turned around and used this as an excuse about is so that actually they can have a reach into their own market in a bigger way, rather than having China come in and say, okay, we've built these apps and these games, but when you give us the money, you may retain some of it, but we're actually going to maintain and retain rather the majority of this cash flow. So it's actually just, instead of the money circulating within the same country, it actually goes externally to a country like China or the US or whoever develops these apps. So if they ban these apps like TikTok and everything else, they can turn around to their market and say, all right, guys, hey, so there's all this market share for these apps. Go plunder, keep the riches within the Indian market, and we'll support you on it. And that's really what I think is going to be one of the biggest benefits from this, if they decide to sort of hold fast on this, is that they can actually help do a bunch of different sort of pushes within their own markets, or developing these apps sort of internally within the country, which could then be used externally as well, and really bring them to the forefront of the market even more so than they have been, because they have the tech skills. I mean, I worked in the tech recruitment for a tech recruitment agency for many years, and there was so many times, but like within the UK or other countries, if I was recruiting for them, is that we would actually be working with people who were from like India and had migrated to other countries, including the UK, and their skills sets were insane a lot of the time, because they just learned so fast and they were just surrounded by this technology, and they had to work hard to be able to get anywhere, rather than a lot of UK people who got a little bit lazy comparably, because they didn't have to work as hard, they didn't have to be as hungry. Not to say there wasn't as equal talent in the UK, because that would be lying. And so if they go down this route, I think it's going to sort of help their sort of economy grow massively, as long as they do it right. So I'm going to be really looking out for how they actually manage to do that. And it's really important for the esports market that they go ahead and actually bring back a version of esport, like an esports game like PUBG Mobile, with their own twist on it, like Rules of Survival or something else, which they can get away with. It's very easy for them to do that. And they can then allow outside countries to play on it as well. So we'll see how that goes over the next couple of years, I guess. Yeah. So in summary, Indian government says Chinese apps equals bad, our data, our rules, and create a massive tech industry opportunity for Indian-based companies. I think that pretty much summarizes it in a big way. I don't know if we'll ever see PUBG Mobile unbanned, but considering its success, I wouldn't be too surprised if they come to a deal with India. But we could see a copycat game pop up and see India do similar to what Tencent did to PUBG, for example, do a copycat of it and force their way into the market where they have their own version that they control. But also that Tencent could quite easily create a development house outside of China just to focus its efforts on external markets, because that's seemingly being what they're going to need to do over the next couple of years. Yeah, that is actually going to be basically it for this stream. I realized I didn't actually transition there because I hadn't got my stream deck set up in time, because I did this all within like an hour and a half. I mean, I'll show you the document I actually put together on this as well. Brilliant. So yeah, I mean, this is fairly much the document I've just been reading off and working through and sort of going ad hoc off it, and just going through a bunch of different notes I've gone through on this. And this is the kind of thing I want to go forward with. I've got plenty of mistakes that I've made and I want to make improvements on them. I'm going to be cutting this up, putting it on YouTube and seeing how it goes. If you haven't already, go subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's got a highlight reel of my previous commentary experience. But yeah, check it out. I'm also working with a couple of other people outside of what I'm doing now to help them with their esports strategies and just focus within the market. And I'm looking to sort of reproduce that, but for myself, so I can pretty much practice what I preach. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. I might do a stream once a month. I might do it once a week. It really depends when these topics come up and when I actually have time for it. But if you have any feedback on this, I'd really appreciate it. Drop it to me either via sort of DM or in Twitch, and just let me know what you thought. A lot of this was big sort of rambling and just an overview video of what has actually happened. As things come up, I may well re-talk about it and bring people from the actual PUBG Mobile community on board to talk about it, or other sort of experts within the industry as well. But yeah, otherwise, thank you very much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure as usual. I will see you guys next time.